Sound check test 1 2 1 2. Sound check test 1 2. Sound check 1 2 1 2. Sound check test 1 2 1 2. In. Testing 1 2. That's on. We are on here. On here. I think we're on here. And let's see if we're on here. Good morning, everybody who is checking in. If you are on Instagram, can you all hear me on Instagram? I got a new mic plugged in. Just want to make sure it's working properly. If you're listening on Instagram, can you hear me? Instagram, can you hear me? Y'all got sound? Our sound is good on Instagram. Can y'all hear through the mic? You should be hearing through this microphone right here. Can you hear me on Instagram? Let me know if y'all can hear me. Good morning over there on IG, Anthony, Modern, Sabrina. Good morning. Let me know y'all can hear me over there on Instagram. I'm using a new mic and it is directly connected to Instagram. So I just want to make sure y'all can hear me. Does it sound like, is it coming through the mic? Is it coming through this? Or is it like open? Y'all should be hearing it through this microphone right here. But we just want to make sure that's working properly. Facebook, good morning. We are here. Rumble, X, good morning. YouTube, good morning. What's going on? IG, all right, thank you for the verification that is working over there. Michelle Hall, good morning over there on TikTok. We are back, folks. I've been away for a little bit. I was traveling last week, and being that I got streaming on 7 different platforms is hard from a hotel room because the Wi-Fi ain't good enough, number one. And number two, I would need to have multiple devices. Actually, did I have all these devices with me? Actually, I did have all these devices with me. I had my iPad, I had my extra phone, I had my computer, but I didn't actually do any streaming. I thought I might do some streaming, but I was at a conference, and when you're at a conference, you don't really know what the schedule is going to be like. So I didn't have time to do any streaming. And I was on the West Coast, which means for me to stream at this time, 8 a.m. Eastern from the West Coast, meaning I had to be streaming at 5 in the morning. West Coast time, that wasn't happening. I was up at 5 in the morning, as a matter of fact. I was up at 5 in the morning, but I was going to the gym because the conference would start around 8 or 9 o'clock every day. So it wasn't actually going to work in that situation. But anyway, all of that being said, we are back here. Today, we're going to talk about Elon Musk. We're going to talk about Elon Musk and his baby mamas, because I don't know if y'all saw this story. Some of you probably saw Elon Musk, a woman actually, who I had seen her before, but I don't know anything about this woman. This woman named Ashley St. Clair posted on social media, and this went viral. Yeah, I guess we could say it went viral. Yeah, it went viral on social media. She posted on X that she had a baby 5 months ago, and then she said Elon Musk is the father of the kid. Now, I don't know how old Elon Musk is. I think how old is Elon Musk? Like 50? Maybe older than that, something like that. This woman is like late 20s, early 30s. She announced that Elon Musk was the father of this baby that she had a few months ago. And she was saying that the tabloids, quote unquote, the tabloids were about to out her as being Elon Musk's baby mom. Her baby was from Elon Musk. So she basically outed herself instead of having the tabloids out the story. That was her explanation for why she was announcing this. She said she had the baby 5 months ago. So she has a 5-month-old baby, assuming. Again, I don't know anything about this woman. I had seen her face every now and then on social media because she is allegedly a conservative influencer, journalist, blogger, podcaster, whatever the hell she does. And she says she had the baby 5 months ago, and she said Elon Musk is the father. So, of course, this is going to go viral on X because Elon Musk owns X, and Elon Musk probably has the most followers of anybody on X, maybe, or close. And Elon Musk, his name is heavy in the news these days. So she posted that. He didn't really say anything about it, but then a bunch of people started talking about it and there was a whole lot of conversation around this issue. So, of course, you have people who are actually conservative, who I guess are they fans of her, they like her, or they like Elon, and they were saying it was just the basic congratulations. But the thing is, she had the baby 5 months ago. So people were saying congratulations, like she already had the baby. All she did was announce that Elon Musk was the father. So a bunch of people were giving her congratulations. What are they congratulating her for? Because Elon Musk is the father. We're going to get into that here today. So they were saying congratulations. Then you had people who are on the conservative side who were kind of challenging, not necessarily heard directly, but kind of criticizing, let's say, criticizing because they're like, well, you just had a baby by a dude who already has how many kids Elon Musk got? Depending on who you ask, 13, 12 or 13 kids Elon Musk has. And he has like, I believe she's the fourth baby mom from what I could find. She's the fourth different baby mom that Elon has. And now she, knowing this, that he already had three baby moms and he already had 10 plus kids, you went and had unprotected sex with this man or IVF, whatever she did to get, because I think a lot of Elon's kids, he got through IVF allegedly. So you went and had a kid with this guy or by this guy somehow, some way. And you already know that you ain't marrying this guy. He already got all these other kids and you already got all these other baby moms. Why would you do that while you're claiming conservative? Because conservatism in America is supposed to be the party of traditional families, right? Man, woman, child, and everybody living in the same roof. Why would you go have a baby with this guy knowing that that ain't going to be the situation? So there was that. Then there are people who are not conservative. They're not fans of Elon and not fans of the political right. And this woman allegedly is a influencer on the political right. Again, I've seen her before, but I don't really know a ton about this woman, Ashley St. Clair. They're attacking, like, how are you out there talking this conservative shit and pushing the conservative ideals while at the same time you just went and had a baby with a dude who ain't your husband? We know he's not her husband, and we know he got all these baby moms, et cetera, et cetera. So there was this whole conversation happening around this. That's what we're going to talk about here today. So let me introduce myself first. My name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete. I'm author of 40 books. You can see some of them behind me here. So sometimes people ask me, have I read these books? These are my books that you can see. I have this company called Work on Your Game. What we do here is we help licensed professionals scale their businesses up from 6 figures to 7 figures. So this is people in the finance industry, doctors, lawyers. We help those people systematize and scale up their businesses. You can find out more about that by going to workonyourgameuniversity.com. So let's get into this topic here today. Elon's baby moms. I'm going to give you my points, and then, of course, we'll open the floor up for some active discussion. So let's start here. And by the way, if you have questions or comments, I will address them all at the end. So after I get through my points, I'll address everybody's questions and comments. And by the way, I'm on more than one platform. So when you see my eyes going different directions, I'm looking at different cameras. So I'm on Instagram, TikTok over here, Instagram over here, Facebook, Rumble, X, LinkedIn, and YouTube over here. So I'm looking at a bunch of you all at the same time. So Elon Musk is rumored. I don't think anyone knows the exact number. I don't know if anybody has an official count. Rumored to have 13 plus kids with 4 different women. And a lot of people are debating if this is okay or not, or if it's properly aligned with conservatism or not. So first of all, let's be clear about something. I don't think Elon Musk is some hardcore lifetime conservative. Is he? I don't think he is. I don't think Elon Musk is a lifetime conservative. I think Elon Musk, first of all, Elon first emerged. We came to know about him because he was part of what they call the PayPal mafia. So it was him, Peter Thiel, and a few other people who worked at PayPal, very smart people. And they went and made PayPal what it was. It was one of the first places where you could kind of do like peer-to-peer money exchange. Y'all who are OGs of the internet, remember back in the days you sold things on eBay. A lot of the money would be exchanged through PayPal. So Elon was part of that. And I'm bringing up PayPal to explain PayPal is a Silicon Valley company. Any of you ever been to Silicon Valley? You know where it is. Silicon Valley is in the San Francisco Bay Area. San Francisco Bay Area is not conservative. That's a liberal area. That's where Elon came from. Now, technically, he's from Africa, but that's where he was at. And in my experience, at least from what I know, y'all can let me know, anyone who is thriving and being successful in a Silicon Valley based company, which Elon was, you don't really do that as a conservative. Usually you're a liberal if you're doing your thing in Silicon Valley. Elon did his thing in Silicon Valley. So I don't think Elon is even as, again, he's conservative now. Of course, we know he jumped on the Trump train / the MAGA train, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe, of course, his views can evolve over time. There's a lot of people's views may evolve over time. Some of you may have started out as conservatives and become liberals. Some of you may have started as liberals and become conservatives. That can happen with Elon as well. The point being, Elon is not some person who was born and bred to be a conservative all his life. I do not believe that to be true. So people arguing, well, why is he having all these different kids with all these different women? That's not a conservative. It's not a conservative way of living because Elon ain't a conservative. I think he is a conservative now politically because it serves his purposes and what he wants to do. Doesn't make him a bad person. Just means he's playing the game just like everybody else out there. But we can't hold him to these traditional conservative standards. He's not a traditional conservative guy. And there's no reason to believe that he ever was. I believe that his buying of X was, he was telling the truth when he said, I want to open the floor up for free speech and let people say what they want to say. Now, he bought it from, what's my guy's name? Jack Dorsey, who was the owner of what was Twitter before that. And Jack Dorsey they were heavily liberal. They were on the liberal side. If you remember, I mentioned this last week. There was this infamous appearance that Jack and I forget the woman's title, but she was like the head of content and basically the person who made the decisions as to what gets flagged, what gets taken down, what gets censored on Twitter. Her name was Vijaya something. I believe her name was Vijaya. Her and the guy, Jack Dorsey, they appeared on the Joe Rogan podcast. This is probably about, what year was this? Maybe 2021-ish, something like that. And Tim Cook was a special guest. So it was 4 people: Joe Rogan, Tim Cook, Jack Dorsey, and Vijaya. And they're having this back and forth conversation. I know how the Joe Rogan show is about how they decide what content is allowed and what content is not. And it was very, very clear in that conversation. Y'all can find this video. It's still out there to this day. Very clear that it was a very left-leaning platform, Twitter. And we all know that. Elon bought it and said, I'm going to make it more open speech. No free speech absolutist is what he called himself. Now, free speech absolutist comes with an asterisk. You probably shouldn't go on an app that somebody else owns and diss them on their own app. That's a bad idea. So a bunch of people were dissing Elon on X, and he demonetized them and took away their blue checks. And I did a whole live stream on that a couple of weeks ago where I said, that's stupid. Why would you diss him? He owns the app. So yes, he's a free speech absolutist, but that doesn't mean you go talk shit about the person who owns the company while you're using his platform. That's stupid. So it was a bad idea by the people who did that. And I talked about that already, but we can agree that Elon tends to lean conservative now because, again, it's serving his purposes. That does not make him a bad guy. And you could possibly call him an opportunist. And hey, I left my door unlocked. My son just walked in. You want to say hi to my audience? You want to say hi? Okay. So my son just interrupted my live because I forgot to lock the door. Say hi to everybody. Say good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. What's Daddy doing?
Working.
Yeah, Daddy's working. So now you have to get down and you got to go out there because Daddy has to finish his live stream. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And I got to lock the door. 1 second.
I'll do it.
No, you got to go out there and close the door. I forgot to lock it. I'll see you later. Okay. All right. So now we're back. I forgot to lock the door. See, this is what happens when you're away for a week. You miss little process things that procedural things you're supposed to do. So I didn't lock my office door. He walks in. So anyway, as we were saying about Elon Musk, all right, people are debating if this is okay or not. Is it properly aligned with conservatism? The answer is no. It is not aligned with conservatism. I'm not saying it's not okay. I mean, we don't get into that. But this is not aligned with conservatism because that's not who Elon is. And everybody understands that. The fact is, ladies and gentlemen, this is my next point. And we're talking about Elon Musk and his baby mamas, his alleged baby mamas. The nuclear family structure. Nuclear family means man, woman, child under one roof. The nuclear family structure is no longer what it was. I think we all can agree to this. In 2025 is not what it was. Those of you who are over the age of 40, you know that back in the, let's say the 80s, even going into the first half of the 90s, actually even 80s and the 90s, that if you were a person with a family, with a kind of a broken family, that was kind of like you didn't really want to talk about it too much. You didn't want people to know about it. You kind of it was a little, let's call it a stigma attached to that. Now, is there still somewhat of a stigma attached to it? Yes. But is it what it was in the 90s? Hell no. It's very different now. It used to be that a man and woman got together. They stayed together for 50, 60 years. They would have whatever number of kids they had. They would have them together. And it would be nothing happening. There'd be no babies outside of a relationship. And it could be other things. No babies outside of a relationship. They stayed together. And again, I'm not saying it doesn't happen to this day. Some of you right now are in relationships where it's man, woman, child in the house. But at the same time, it's much less stigma attached to not doing that. So the non-traditional thing is not as stigmatized as it used to be. Now, Elon Musk is just endemic of this. Now, Elon Musk is a little bit different animal. My lips are a little bit too shiny here on TikTok. So Elon Musk is a little bit different animal because of who he is, where he comes from. He has a very unique type of background, and I haven't heard him talk about kids. I don't know what his philosophy is, but I guess it's regenerate and progenerate as many as he possibly can. I guess that's the way he's looking at it. I haven't heard him talk about it, but I'm sure that he has. But this whole concept of conservatives, some of you listening to this, having an issue with a man having a bunch of kids with a bunch of different women and not having a traditional house, I understand your position. At the same time, we can agree, even if you feel that way about Elon, we can agree that it is becoming more and more acceptable to do this. And it doesn't really have much to do with you being rich and having billions of dollars, such as Elon is publicly noted for being. Elon could be in a guy making $300,000 a year. And if he wanted to do the same thing, it would generally be looked at as okay. So this whole concept, we're going to get to the whole money thing in a moment, because that's one that I see come up often. And I'm not a fan of that conversation. I'm going to get to and explain what it is. So again, it's not the norm anymore for this man, woman, child all under one household, or it's not looked at as like, this is what you have to do. You're doing something wrong if you're not doing it. So even our leaders, if you look around at our world today, our leaders, look at the leaders right now that we have in our government. They often have these blended families, or what some people call a broken family, non-traditional families. Look at Donald Trump. Right? Donald Trump has had multiple wives, and he's had kids with more than one woman that he was married to. And we all know the situation that he probably had sex with this woman outside of his relationship, which led to that whole case that he had in New York. We know that Donald Trump he's not living the traditional man, woman, child lifestyle. He hasn't, and he still got elected anyway, twice. And depending on who you ask, maybe 3 times. Elon Musk, we already talked about. I don't know if Elon's ever been married. Anybody know? Was he ever actually married? But he has all these different baby moms, all these different kids. Look on the other side. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris did not have any natural children of her own. She was in a blended family. So she married this guy. What was that guy's name? The first gentleman or second gentleman. What was he calling himself? The second gentleman, whatever. That guy, Doug. He had kids from a previous relationship. He was married to Kamala. So she was the mom of these kids who were not, they naturally had not come out of her. And Kamala's like 60 something years old. And I guess she ain't having any kids. And then you had even Joe Biden. Joe Biden was in what appeared to be a traditional relationship with his wife, Jill. And then they had kids, but then his kids had some untraditional situations, right? As far as how their lifestyles were. I'm bringing these people up to help you all understand. Many of these people at the top of government on both sides of the aisle, they're not even in traditional relationships anymore. And these are the leaders. These are people we're voting for, and the people we're deciding are going to lead the country. We're voting for them, even though they're not in traditional situations. So the traditional thing is just not as much of a thing as it used to be. If you go back to if we look at previous presidents, you can look at someone like people who, J.D. Vance, his situation appears to be pretty traditional. But these other people who are in the leadership positions, you see where they're at. Mike Pence, I don't know what his situation was, but he's seen Mike Pence, the way he presents himself, he seemed very traditional, right? Just straight up and down, normal, stiff white guy, I guess we can say. So he was probably married. I don't know if he was. He's probably married. And he probably has kids, and he seems like not a blended family type of guy. Excuse me. We go back. Hillary Clinton married to Bill Clinton. They have a child. All right. Normal situation. Now, did Bill do some things outside of that? Yes, but no kids. At least not that we know of. Right. So Bill, Hillary, one kid. Then you have Barack Obama, Michelle. They got their kids. You got George W. He was married, and I believe he had kids. I don't know if he had kids or not. I don't know anything about it. So what I'm saying is, it used to be that if you were going to even try to get into this position of running for president or even be vice president, you had to have the traditional man, woman, child. And if you didn't have that, you couldn't even get through the vetting process with the political parties to where they would say, okay, there's a chance we might run you as vice president, or a chance we might run you as president. You had to be straight up. Now, Donald Trump came in, and I think we got to give credit to Trump for this. He broke the system. He broke that expectation, because this is a guy who we already knew. It's not like Donald Trump, some unknown guy. We already knew. He'd been famous for years. He had different wives, different kids by these wives. He was known as kind of a guy who got around, did what he wanted to do with different women, and grab them by the P word. We know all that stuff with Donald Trump, and he won. So that kind of opened the door for, you don't have to have the traditional setup at home to ascend to a leadership position within the country. And I'm not saying that's a negative thing about Trump. I'm saying it's just a thing. And when you look around, you see the traditional household is not as much of a thing as it used to be. And people who are of the conservative mindset and want it to be more of a thing again. I believe J.D. Vance was even talking about this himself, which is funny because he's under Donald Trump, who doesn't have it himself. But I understand it. So the fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, this whole stigma of being a single parent has been greatly reduced from what it used to be. Again, those of you over the age of 40, you remember how it was in the 80s and the 90s, that if you were a single parent, people are looking at you like something was wrong with you if you were a single parent. Now, you got people talking about being single parents and bragging about it. Often this is from women because they're the ones who have to carry the baby. And usually if there's a single parent, it's often the woman with the kid, not the dad with the kid, unless something happened to the woman. And I remember there was a woman, I forget the lady's name. She was on, it was a black chick. I remember she was on the Breakfast Club, but some of you remember this woman's name. I believe it was Ebony. I believe it was Ebony Williams. I believe her name's the black chick. And she was talking about how she was, I believe it was on the Breakfast Club. She was saying this. So she might have said it on her own show. I believe she has her own show on some network. And she was talking about how she was maybe 40. She wanted to have a baby by herself. So she was going to get impregnated. What is that? Is that IVF or whatever it is where a woman can just get pregnant by herself? She basically chooses a sperm donor and gets pregnant by herself and raises the kid by herself. And she was basically talking shit. What she was saying was, well, look, my situation is together and I have the money, et cetera, et cetera. I can raise the kid by myself and not be in a traditional relationship. And her justification for this was that as a successful black woman, that I haven't been able to find the right type of man who can kind of meet me where I'm at. That's basically what she was saying. I'm paraphrasing, but that was the argument that she was making. And she was having a conversation with Ayanna Bonzant, who is an older black woman. And Ayanna asked her, I believe she was on Ayanna's show, and Ayanna asked this woman, I believe her name is Ebony, and she said, would you date or marry a bus driver? And Ebony's response was, well, if he owns the bus. That was her response. If he owns the bus. And Ayanna was not in agreement with what she was saying. And this woman, Ebony, was just basically just talking shit. Like, I make this much money and I do this and that, and I got this and I got that. And she was on the Breakfast Club saying a whole lot more of this. She was talking a lot of shit about what she got and how she owns this house and she makes this much money and how much her taxes are and all this stuff. And she was talking about how she might just go have a kid on her own. I don't know if she did it or not. This was maybe a year or two ago. She was having that conversation. I would guess if she was serious that she might want to jump on that because she ain't got that much time left. But anyway, this whole stigma of being a single parent is greatly reduced. I heard Van Jones. Y'all know Van Jones, who's on CNN sometimes, the black guy with the glasses. I heard him talking about this. I don't know if he actually did it. Somebody can let me know because I don't keep up with this kind of stuff with these folks. But Van Jones was talking this about how he and another woman who he was friends with, not like dating, but friends, he was saying he had thrown this idea out there about he and this woman were going to have a kid, but they weren't going to be in a relationship together. They just wanted to have a kid. He wanted to have a kid. She wanted to have a kid. So they were going to go through the process, have a kid, and then kind of be individually parenting the kid. And they were going to plan this. Like this was what they were going to do from the beginning. Now, I don't know if they actually did it or not. The point that I'm making is this is gotten to the point that people are even talking about this openly and other people are like co-signing it. Like, yeah, that's a good idea. Go do this. Again, this is not how we were. Again, you're over 40. This is not the way your parents were raised. Again, even if your parents became single parents, that wasn't the goal. It was never the goal to be a single parent. The goal was always it's supposed to be him, her, and the kid. Or kids. That's the way it's supposed to be under one roof. That's the way it's supposed to be. So if it ends up not working out, something went wrong along the way. If it ends up not working out and we're not married and with all of our kids under one roof, something went wrong. There was a mistake that happened. Too bad that happened, but we got to move on one way or another. But it wasn't ever like, I'm planning this. I'm going to just have a kid by myself and I'm going to be single. I'm already single. I'm going to stay single. I'm going to have a kid. And it's just going to be me and the kid. And this is okay. That's where things are starting to go in another direction. Now, you may be wondering, what do I think about this? I believe that the disruption of the traditional family leads to a disruption of overall the foundations of society, because we know statistically this has been proven that when children are coming from single parent households, they are statistically not as successful as children that come from two-parent households. That is not to say, of course, that anyone coming from a single-parent household can't be successful. Some of you listening to this are successful, and you are indeed a product of a single-parent household. Some of you are the heads of single-parent households, and hopefully you expect that your kid will be successful despite the fact that you are a single parent. So yes, can success come out of this? Of course. But at the same time, we know statistically, children that come from two-parent homes tend to do better in school. They tend to end up making more money career-wise. They tend to stay out of the judicial systems. We all know that this is true. Even if you're a parent, a single parent right now, and you're going to go against the grain and be the exception to the rule, that's fine. Hopefully you are. That doesn't mean the rule doesn't exist. And a lot of people just don't want to acknowledge it because it might hit a little bit too close to home for some of you who are listening to this. But a reality doesn't care about your feelings, as the saying goes, or facts don't care about your feelings. It used to be that people were embarrassed to be single parents. Nowadays, people like tout it. They talk about it. Hey, I'm a single parent, and that's just what it is. I often see this with women much more than men because a woman tends to be the one with the kid when the situation doesn't work out. And that brings me to my next point. And this is one of the biggest points that has been pushed societally. Elon Musk is a good example for this point. This is the argument that if a person has the money, they have the financial resources to where they can take care of a kid or kids on their own, or they can afford to have multiple babies by multiple women because they have enough money to pay her and her and her and her, and everybody's financially good because this man has all this money. Or this woman can be a single parent because she got this money, whatever it is. People have come to with this whole argument that, well, we can accept and appreciate that this person can have multiple kids because they have money. And having the resources to do it matters more than having a traditional family of man, woman, child under one roof. So people make the argument, well, look, it's better that Nick Cannon, y'all know Nick Cannon? So used to be I guess a little bit of a musician, and he had a TV show called Wild 'N Out, and he has a podcast now. I've heard a couple episodes of his podcast. I'm not a regular listener, but he seems to be trying to be he seems to be a thinking guy. I don't listen to his stuff a lot, but he seems to have some ideas that it looks like he's thought about. He's taking some time to think about. Not that I agree with all of them, but it looks like he's taking some time to think about. So Nick Cannon is a guy who has a bunch of kids by a bunch of different women, and he has openly discussed, and I don't know if we'll call it bragging, but he's openly said he likes it that way. And he did it on purpose. It wasn't an accident that he has all these different baby moms. He actually did it on purpose. Then there was Cam Newton, former NFL football player who has a podcast now. Now, one thing I'll say different about Cam Newton, he does not seem like a guy who sat and actually intellectualized and thought about the things that he says. He seems like the normal jock, the normal athlete. I used to be an athlete, so I can say that. So he's like most of the athletes that I know. And he was saying, I believe, I can't remember the woman's name. What was that black woman he had on his podcast months ago, maybe a year ago? And she was like a therapist, and she was asking him about his baby moms and all that stuff. Y'all remember that? So that clip went viral because I don't watch Cam stuff, but that clip went viral. And he was saying, I got all these kids. I don't know how many he has. And he said, I want to have more. I want to do more of what I've already been doing. Basically have more kids by more women. And his argument was, I have the funds, I have the finances to where I can afford to have these kids. This is the issue. And it's the same thing with Elon Musk. Elon Musk is noted as being the richest man, at least in the United States of America, on paper, publicly noted for having all this money. You got a guy like Donald Trump, who's publicly noted for having a lot of money. And then you have, as I said, that woman, I believe her name is Ebony Williams. She was basically saying, without saying it in so many words, but she came pretty close, I got the finances to where I can raise a kid by myself. I don't need no man. I don't need a man's money, et cetera, because I got my own money. She was pushing that point a little bit too hard as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, she was saying that. And then you have other women who do the same thing. I saw a post it was on X, maybe about a month. Where are we at now? It's February. Yeah, maybe about a month ago. I think it was around Christmas. And it was a woman, single woman, black woman, and she had a kid. And she posted this picture of her kid standing in front of a Christmas tree. And it was a very nice Christmas tree. And there was so many toys that you couldn't even see the fucking floor. Like it was all these, not toys, but gifts wrapped up. So it was all these gifts around the Christmas tree to where you couldn't even see the floor. And the kid's sitting there on top of the gifts. And there's a beautiful Christmas tree. And the woman's caption was something like, no, you're always going to be, taken care of, or I got you. That's not what she said. She said it in a smoother way, a more flowery way. But the whole point of the post was her letting everybody know, hey, here's my kid, and look at all the stuff that I bought for my kid, and it's just me it was just her as a single mom posting this, and there was this way of kind of flexing, like I got the funds to be able to do this. Here's the issue with this approach, and I see a lot of people co-signing this approach and using the same evidence-based argument to defend it, which is Cam Newton, well, he got money. He played in the NFL. He made this much money. Or Elon Musk, he has $100 billion. Or this woman, she makes this much money. Or someone who's a single parent out there, maybe some of you listen to this right now. I make this much money. I got this much. I don't need a man. I don't need child support. I'm good financially to take care of it. That is not the fucking point of being a parent. The point of being a parent is not, I should be a parent because I have this much money or I earn this much revenue. That's not what it means to be a parent. Parenting is not about how much money you have. Now, does it cost money to be a parent? Yes, it does. It costs money to be born, costs money to die. Diapers cost money. Baby formula costs money. Childcare costs money. Your kids' feet get bigger every 3 months. That costs money. The kids grow out of clothes. That costs money. You got to get a babysitter. That costs money. The car seat costs money. Things cost money. Does it cost money to raise a child? Yes, it does. However, the main consideration for having a child is not how much money you make and how much money you have. You don't raise a kid with your bank account. You raise a child with your presence and by actually being there time-wise with your child. You cannot substitute a lack of presence with a paycheck. That's not the way it works. So this argument that Nick Cannon, I don't know if he said it in so many words, but he has alluded to it. Cam Newton, same thing. He hasn't said it in so many words, but he's alluded to it. Elon, I have not heard him say it. I see a lot of single women saying these things and they allude to it. They may not say it in so many words, but they allude to it. And then I see people defending this and they'll say it in so many words. Well, this guy played in the NFL and he made this much money, so he can afford to have multiple kids. People actually say that this guy can afford to have all of these baby moms because of how much money he makes or how much money he allegedly made. That is bullshit. That is not what it takes to raise a kid. Let me ask a question. How many of you were raised by a single parent and the parent who was not there? Right? So the parent who wasn't at home every day, that one, whether it was your dad or your mom, for many of you, it might have been your dad, or even those of you who were raised by somebody who wasn't your mom or your dad, and neither your mom or your dad was around. Let me ask you a question. If your mom or dad was alive, but not around, how much money could they have sent to you to make up for the fact that they were not present? How much money would have closed that gap? How much money would have healed that wound of mom or dad not being around? How much money would it take? Give me a number. Is there a number that would make it make sense? So if you're right now out there and you're a child, or you were a child of a single parent, how much money could your dad have been sending to you every month to make up for the fact that he wasn't at home every day? Any of you who's a single parent right now, let's say you're a single mom, how much money can the father of your child or children send to your kids to erase the fact that he's not home every day? That would make it okay. Your kids will grow up completely okay. Well, he's not here every day, but he sent this much money, so now it's cool. How much money? Give me a number. Give me a dollar amount. All right. So all of you are answering exactly what it is. The answer is zero. So this whole argument that this person is rich, or this person makes this much money, or they own a business, or they got this, or they got that, or they made this much money playing in the NFL or the NBA, that means they, quote unquote, can afford to have kids. That is bullshit. That is not how you afford. You don't afford to have kids with money. You afford to have kids with your physical presence. That's why the traditional family is man, woman, child under one roof. What you pay, how you pay, is in your time. Time is more valuable than money. Why? Because money can be replicated and replenished. Time cannot. So any of you who grew up as a single child, I come from a 2-parent household, but anyone I know who grew up as a single child, the biggest thing they wanted from the kid, not from the kid, from the parent, was presence. Y'all remember that J-Lo song, Love Don't Cost a Thing? I remember that video. Remember the video from that song where J-Lo, at the beginning of the video, if y'all saw Jennifer Lopez, at the beginning of the video, she's at this house and she's opening the gift and it's a beautiful bracelet. And then she gets on the phone, allegedly talking to the man who sent her the bracelet. And she was like, yeah, I got the bracelet. It's beautiful. But she doesn't seem too happy. She was like, well, it'd be better if you were here instead of just another bracelet. And then she goes on to the song. The song is called Love Don't Cost a Thing. And the whole point of the song is that for you to show your love to me, I don't want you to send me more shit with your money. I want you to physically be present, because that matters more than the amount of money and material things that you can send me. Because her whole argument was, I already got money. I don't need money things. I need presence. And she was, I mean, there's a song, but it's completely correct. It's the same thing with parenting. So this is what society has become. Society has grown into this. It's not any of you individually, but society has become this. Back in the 80s and the 90s, there was nobody saying, oh, well, this person has a lot of money, so it's okay if they have a bunch of kids by a bunch of different women and they're not present in the homes of any of those kids. Nobody was saying that in the 80s and the 90s. Now in 2025, you got people actually bragging about it and planning to do it. They do this as a plan. Like, I'm going to have all these kids by all these different people, and I don't need to be there because I got enough money to take care of it. And there's some people who, again, generally, I like their stuff, who talk about this, but I do not agree with them on this point. I don't agree with this. The bald-headed guy who got kicked off all social media, the kickboxer, I generally like a lot of the things that he talks about when it comes to mindset and business and personal growth and professional development, etc. On this subject, I do not agree. I don't agree with that. The things that he said, because he is on the Elon path. I have a bunch of kids by a bunch of different women, and I got enough money for them to be taken care of. They don't need that much time with me because I'm this and I'm that. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with this approach. That to raise a child, you need to be present. You want your kid to see you every day, or at least know where you at. I told you I was away for a week. My kid knew where I was at. I seen him on FaceTime every day. Like, they should know where you're at and know what's going on. You shouldn't go like a week straight. You don't know where your dad's at or what he's doing, and you ain't heard from him, but he sent the check. No, that's not okay. So this has become more accepted in society. And one of the reasons is that we don't have the same standards. So there's this thing called the law of entropy, ENTROPY. I talk about this a lot. The law of entropy states in simple everyday terms that any entity that does not have proper boundaries or guardrails around it is always descending into a state of chaos and disorder. And society is an entity that, when there are not guardrails, boundaries, standards, rules, and principles policing society or guiding society, then that society will descend into chaos and disorder. This is a natural scientific thing. It's always happening. It applies to all of you as well. If you don't brush your teeth for a week, then disorder and chaos will start happening with your teeth and with your gums. You don't take care of your body, same thing. You don't take care of your relationships, same thing. Anything that you are not consistently using guidelines and standards to keep it in check is going to get worse. Any of you has a house, any of you is a homeowner, and you got a yard around your house, like grass and flowers. If you don't hire a landscaper or go get on your lawnmower and cut the grass and pick up the dog poop and pick up the trash, what happens to your yard? It starts looking like shit. All right, that's the law of entropy. And what's happened in society over the years is not that we have no guardrails and no standards. It's just that, again, back in the 80s and the 90s, there were stricter standards and guardrails around how families worked, how relationships worked, and what it meant to raise a child. The standards were stricter, they were more clear, and most people followed them. What's happened over the last, let's say, 25 plus years is that the standards have just gotten lowered. That's what happened. We just lowered the standards. We've lowered the standards. We don't as strongly enforce the principles. The stigmas have gotten removed. And what happens is when you lower standards, there's a saying, I talk about this often, that with any organization, when you lower the standards, you lose the winners, because high level performers like to be held to really high standards. And if you have an organization with high standards and then you stop enforcing the high standards, you make it lower, then the high performers will leave because they want to be in a place where there are high standards, because when standards are really high, the only people who stand out are the best performers. But if you lower the standards, then that means everybody can stand out. And the high performers are like, well, my high performance doesn't matter here, is not valued here. I'm going to go somewhere else where the standards are higher. So anytime you lower a standard, the highest level performers exit. And anytime you raise the standard, what happens is the low level performers exit because they are not able to reach the bar. So if you raise the standards in the organization, you're going to have fewer people, but the few people you have are going to be much higher level performers because the standard is so high for performance. And what's happened in society is that we've lowered the bar of standards so much when it comes to families and child rearing and relationships that now anything goes. And that's where we're at right now. That's how we got to this anything goes thing. That's how the rainbow flag got adopted to represent something that has nothing to do with what the rainbow actually represents in the Bible. The rainbow was a sign from God that I will never flood the earth ever again. That's what the rainbow actually means. I will never flood the earth again. That's my promise to you that will never happen. That's what the rainbow means. Now, what does the rainbow mean? That's because we lowered the standard. The standards got removed. And when someone first came out with that idea, hey, we're going to take the rainbow, we're going to make it this, nobody said anything, and they allowed it. And now look where we're at. You go to South Beach, and you between 11th Street and 13th Street, you see a whole bunch of rainbow flags. And I remember the first time I was in South Beach, I saw the rainbow flags. I'm like, what exactly does this mean? I remember I was at the beach by myself once, and I was sitting on like 12th Street on the beach, and I kept seeing the rainbow flags. I was like, why is there rainbow? What's that rainbow flag mean? And then I realized I was in the wrong part of the beach. And then I had to move to a different part of South Beach. The whole point is, excuse me, this is what happens when we remove standards. It used to be a standard that, okay, if you have a kid, all right, you're there, and that's it. My dad told me this story. I come from I told you, a 2-parent household. I have one sister, and my sister was born before me. She's like a year older than me. So when my dad told me the story that when he first, because my parents got married after my sister, but before me. So in between her and me, they got married. So my dad had a baby with his girlfriend, which was my mom, and he wasn't married yet. But then when my mom got pregnant the second time with what became me, my dad said that his dad, my grandfather, pulled him aside and said, yo, now it's one thing if you got one kid with her, but now you got two, like, yo, you got to go do that. And basically my grandfather told my dad, yo, you got to go marry this woman because you about to have 2 kids with her. You can't be playing around. And now you got to marry her. And that's when they got married. They got married before I was born, and they've been together ever since. At least the last time I checked, they were still together. I hadn't talked to them in a couple of days. But anyway, the whole point being, folks, there was a standard. There was a standard, and people respected the standard, and they lived by the standard, and nobody was walking around touting and being proud of the fact that they had baby moms and kids by multiple women, and oh, it was okay because I can afford it, or it's okay, I can't afford it. That was not a thing. And anyone who was doing that, and a man who had multiple baby moms, especially if he didn't have a whole lot of money, and coming from the communities that I come from, we seen men like this. They were looked down upon. They were looked at as losers. We would call, there's a word for it. They call them deadbeat dads. Isn't that a thing? Then they call them deadbeat dads. If you had kids, a kid or kids, and you were not at least paying the money to help the mom take care of that kid, even if you think it's excessive, even if you think that the family court, from what I've heard, family court is not a place that you want to be. I've never been there, don't want to go there. But even if you don't like the amount that you're being forced to pay, if you weren't at least trying, you were looked at as deadbeat dad. And a deadbeat was not some positive term. That was a negative term to make you look bad. And it was designed to make you look bad because you weren't doing your job as a father. But we all know the real job of the father is to be present. You ain't got to have a lot of money. My parents didn't have a lot of money. My parents probably didn't make combined $100,000 a year the whole time that I was growing up. I went to college when I was 18. I went away to college when I was 19, my sophomore year. Came back home after college when I was 22, moved out permanently when I was 24. My parents together, I don't think, ever made $100,000 a year combined. Yet they raised me, and I became me. I think people will call me successful. My sister's a college professor. They had 2 kids. That was it. That's what they became. They didn't have money. It wasn't about the money. It was about presence and doing your job as a parent, which is raising your kids. Raising your kids is not about how much money you got. Money can help, but that ain't how you raise your kids. Like, we didn't have cars. We took public transportation. Well, my parents had a car. My dad had a car. My mom didn't have a car. We took public transportation to go places. We would go to the Sixers game. When I was a kid, we would take the bus and the train to go to the game and take the bus and the train to get home. We didn't have a car to go to the game. Or I went to the Phillies game or something like that. Somebody said something. Can y'all hear me in the mic? Instagram, we good on the mic? Can y'all hear me? And we never went on a vacation. I never went on a vacation until I was an adult. We never went anywhere. We didn't go to Disney World or nothing like that. No vacations. My parents, they had kind of poor money mindsets. We're not made of money. No, do you think money grows on trees? We're not rich, etc. There's no sound on the mic. Someone telling me on Instagram there's no sound on the mic. Let me try this other mic. Maybe it's not charged. What about this one? Can you hear me now, Instagram? So some people saying no sound, and someone else said the mic is fine. It's you then? Okay, so let me put the mic back on. All right, we good? Can you hear me on Instagram? If you're watching on Instagram, can you hear me? This is a brand new mic, so there's no reason it shouldn't be working. Can you hear me on Instagram? All right, no problem. All right, cool. All right, thank you. Monitor Sabrina, I got you. No problem. So anyway, so the whole point being my parents didn't have a ton of money, but they did a good job raising their kids. And the neighborhood that I come from a lower middle class background. No one around me was rich. Like everybody had, maybe most families had one car, maybe they had two. And most of the parents, they both worked. Most of the parents were both working. If it was two parents, almost everybody was two parent households, and they worked. And I ain't saying everybody who came from my neighborhood became successful, but it wasn't, people wasn't out there crazy. It wasn't a bunch of junkies or drug addicts. It was people who went to work every day and did their job raising their kids. Nobody was rich. Where I come from, nobody was rich. People had ants, we had roaches, we had mice. All right, that's where I come from. And nobody was rich, but everybody did their jobs. That's what parenting actually looks like. So when it comes to celebrities, again, people seem to be, and I'm not talking about the celebrities themselves, I'm talking about the fans, the observers of celebrities, talk about them as long as somebody is publicly known for having financial resources, then it's okay. All right, that's complete nonsense. All right, financial resources do not raise children. You do not raise children with money. You raise children by physically being present, because you can make as much money as you want to make. You could spend a whole bunch of money, make a whole bunch of money. But, you cannot spend a whole bunch of time and make a whole bunch of time. You cannot make time. That's why it's more valuable. That's why J-Lo had the song. Right? Love don't cost a thing. All right, I want you to be present and don't give me any money. Just physically be present. That's much better than you give me a bunch of money, but you're never around. And it's the same thing. Any of you was raised by a single parent. All right, what would you say about the parent who wasn't around? You want them to give you more money? Would that have made you happy, or would it be better if you had actually seen them more? So your ability to raise a child is not based on how much you got. I've harped on this point strongly enough. It's based on the time that you give. So someone has money so they can have kids. Again, nonsense. Usually I've heard a lot of men saying this and men defending other men by saying this. Oh, this guy got this much so he can have a kid. Bullshit. And there are women who are starting to think like this, which is, I believe, scary for society. That there are women walking around starting to think, I'm going to have a kid knowing that the man I'm having this kid with is not going to be around, but because the finances will be there, either because you have the money as the woman or you had sex and had a kid with a man who has money, then that makes it okay. I'm not a fan of this, but our society, we live in a very secularized society, and very secularized society, we tend to look at people's material possessions, such as their money, as the real measure of success, as opposed to, are you actually showing up? Are you present? Are you raising your kids? Are you doing all the right things? This is where we are. This is the world that we live in, ladies and gentlemen. This is the world that we're in. That if someone has the resources, then that makes them successful. Even if everything else in every other area is shit and terrible, then we're going to call that person successful. So if you're a man and you got 4, 5, 6 baby mamas and 10, 15, whatever kids, and you're not there present for those kids, no way you can be, because you can't split up. You can't split yourself into 6 different households. It's impossible. That's okay just because you got enough money. You got enough money to afford it. So it's okay. And then as soon as you don't have the money anymore, let's say you're a former NBA or NFL player, and it was cool to have 10 kids when you were playing in the league and those checks were coming in. Now the checks ain't coming in. You can't replicate the money. Now you're a deadbeat because you don't have the money anymore. No, you were already leaning in that direction when you had money, because it ain't money that makes you a parent. Money does not make you a parent. What makes you a parent is your presence, period. And again, in secular society, this is what we've become. As long as somebody has money, then whatever they do is acceptable and okay. That's not true. And it's hard to say that when you're a person who doesn't have any amount of money. So it's hard to look at someone else and say these kind of things, but it is still the reality. All right. Money does not make up. There's a lot of things money cannot buy. So as they say, money doesn't buy happiness. Do I agree with that? Not necessarily. Money can buy a whole lot of things that will make you happy. But the point of the saying, money not buying happiness, is not to take it literally, is the spirit of the point, which is a lot of things that money cannot buy. You cannot buy 18 years of raising a child, no matter how much money you got. Elon Musk cannot buy 18 years of raising this kid that he had with this woman, Ashley St. Clair, no matter how much money he got, he could make $1 trillion. If he's not present with that kid, he can't buy what he's going to miss and what that kid is going to miss. I don't know what Elon's living situation is. I don't know who he lives with. I don't know which kids he's around the most. But the problem is if you have a bunch of baby moms, and unless they're all living under one roof. You ever seen that TV show where it's like the polygamy TV show? And it'll be in America, but it'll be in some place that you never heard of. It'll be like some rural place in like Utah. And there'll be a man and he'll have like 3 wives and they all live in the house, the same house together. And all the kids are in the same house and all the wives are cool with each other. And the guy just sleeps with whichever one he wants that day. It's kind of like Hugh Hefner, but with kids. So if you're doing that, then I don't even know how I'll have to think about that for a minute. But it's closer to doing it the right way than if you got a bunch of baby moms that don't know each other, don't really like each other. They ain't hanging out with each other. They're not living all under the same roof. And now you got to split yourself 3, 4, 5 different ways to spend time with the kids. You can't possibly give the proper presence to each one of those kids. You ain't available. Now, if you got 10 kids with one woman, and I know men who have that many kids with one woman and you're all under the same house, now you're present. So if I'm one of the kids, right now you're not with me because you're at the soccer game with my sister. I'm cool with that because I know where you at. And I know that you're there. If you need me, then you'll be around for me too. But what's happening is this whole, let's just split ourselves up because I got the money. Nonsense. Kids need time, not money. All of you understand this. All of y'all understand this. Kids need time, not money. You saw my son when he interrupted my live earlier because I forgot to lock the door. As soon as he gets out of bed in the morning, where's the first place he goes? He comes and sees what's daddy doing. Because he knows I'm in here. He can hear my voice. I mean, you can't hear everything I'm saying, but you can hear if I'm talking, you can hear it through the door. He comes to see what I'm doing. Now, if I wasn't here, let's say I didn't live here. I got my own place across town, but I'm sending him some money every day. Would that make up for him being able to wake up, open the door, and see me? Absolutely not. Don't matter how much money it is. There's no dollar amount that can replace that. So kids need the time with their parent. Someone said, why are we talking about Elon baby mamas? Because it's current events. And why you here? Are you here because you want to hear what I had to say? All right, the same reason you're commenting. That's why we're talking about it. So a couple more points, then we'll get to comments. This is not necessarily to say that this is the mindset whoever goes out, again, it ends up having a child and ends up being a single parent. Some of you became single parents not because you wanted to, but because that's just the way that things occurred. I understand. Trust me, I understand that can happen. I know there are people who stay in relationships, probably some of you who have stayed in a relationship that at some points, you might have been thinking about, I don't want to even be with this person anymore. But because of the kid, I'm a hang out. I'm going to stay. And we're going to figure out how to make this work because of the kid. I believe there were times, I'm not going to put words in my parents' mouth, but I believe there were times that either of my parents, mom or dad, was thinking, I don't want to be with this person anymore. But because of the kids and because of the standards and the principles that were around then, my parents were born in like the 60s. But the standards and the principles that were around then, 70s, 80s, 90s, they didn't want to do that. They thought really, really hard about whether to walk away or not, knowing how it was going to affect the kids. Whereas these days, if a man and a woman have a kid and they have an issue, they don't think as long or as hard about how is this going to affect the family? How is this going to affect the kid? What I find these days is that a lot of people are only thinking about themselves. How is this going to affect me? How do I feel? And when I say me, I mean the parent, the mom or the dad. I hear a whole lot of women having a kid with somebody, then getting out of a relationship. And when they talk about it, and these days a lot of women end up talking about this shit, they talk about their happiness. Oh, well, I wasn't happy. And I shouldn't be in any situation where I'm not happy. I think there's a song by Drake. It's called Search and Rescue. If y'all heard the song. And in between the first verse and the second verse, he has a clip of these females talking. It sounds like one of the Kardashian girls. I don't know who it is. And she's talking to the mom, Kris Jenner. And she says, I didn't come this far and not be happy. I don't know who. It sounds like one of the Kardashian chicks. But this is the kind of stuff that women say these days. Oh, I want to be happy. So you went and had a kid with a man and y'all were working on being together and raising your kid or kids. But because you were unhappy, you went and broke up that family, and now you're going to deprive your child of a father's presence because you want to personally be happy. Here's what I got to say to that. And this is going to hit home for some of you who are single parents. Once you have a kid, your happiness is no longer the priority. Once you have a kid with another consenting adult, Your personal happiness is no longer the priority. That's not the priority anymore because you chose to bring a life into the world. You're responsible for that life for 18 years because that life cannot operate on its own. It can only survive. It's 100% dependent on you. And you had a kid not by yourself. You need a man and a woman to have a kid. You need both. So both of you are now responsible for that kid collectively. It's not about how you feel personally. It's not about your personal priorities and your fucking happiness. You sacrificed that when you decided to become a parent. If you wanted to focus on you, you should have stayed childless. You want to be focused on you, you stay childless. As soon as you decide to have a kid or kids, you are now responsible for those kids at least for 18 years. Now, when they leave the house, you can go back to it being about you. But as soon as you have that kid, you got an 18-year commitment. You remember that Kanye song? 18 years. 18 years. All right. And that's for the man and the woman. All right. You are responsible. And that's the deal. And again, this used to be the standard. I told you, I believe there were times growing up that my parents, either of my parents was thinking, I don't need to be here with this other person, talking about the other one, the mom or the dad. But they stuck it out because there were certain standards and principles that society enforced on all of us back then. Nowadays, those standards and principles, they're still there, but they don't get enforced as much. And there's less stigma for you walking away and a woman walking away from a relationship with a man and saying, well, reason why I'm not with that man anymore, even though I'm raising his kids by myself, is because I wanted to be happy. And people are applauding this. People are applauding. They're like, yeah, girl, focus on your happiness. Bullshit. Fuck your happiness. You got kids. You're responsible for those kids. And yes, you can be responsible financially and take care of them as a single parent, but you know that ain't the way it's supposed to be. It's man, woman, child. You being a single parent means you got to do basic double or triple duty because you don't have a man around because you and the man ain't want to work it out. Now, why did that happen? It shouldn't even be in this situation because a lot of times this is not even a divorce, right? We know that, right? These are not divorces. A lot of people who are single parents is not because you got divorced from the other parent. It's because y'all were never married in the first place and never got serious about getting married in the first place. When you went and had a kid, y'all are here playing around, went and had a kid. Y'all were never that committed to each other. So as soon as something goes wrong and it's not comfortable or convenient anymore, okay, let's just break up and I'll take care of the kid, or we got enough money, et cetera, et cetera. Again, I say for the 50th time here today, money does not raise children. You don't raise children with money. You raise children with your physical presence of both parents, not one, both. And there's no amount of money that can make up for a missing parent. So people who comment on and defend this because of the money they think a person has, that's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. How many of you was raised by a rich parent? And how many of you were raised by parents who were not rich? How many of you listen to this, whether you're raised by a single parent or a two-parent household? How many of you were raised by parents who were not rich and you still became okay? This whole idea that people talk about, well, this person has money, so it makes it okay. It makes no sense, being that at the same time, you hear a lot of people talk about how few people have that amount of money, right? You hear this when they talk about the tax cuts for Trump. Well, only people who are making this much money are going to face tax cuts. That's not most people. 99% of people are not rich, whatever you call rich. So how is it that we're saying it's okay to do it when you're rich, when there's so few people who are even rich? How many of you became fine? You grew into a fine, contributing member of society as an adult, despite the fact that your parents were not financially rich. And you knew they weren't rich. They might even told you they weren't rich. Or looking back now as an adult, you can tell they weren't rich from what you knew. Or maybe they even told you now. That's most of us. Most people do not come from rich families. So this whole idea, it doesn't even make any sense when you logically think about it. But people throw this out there over and over again. Now, as far as conservatives go, conservatives as a whole conservatism has positioned itself as the party of traditional values. The issue is when you elect someone who does not have a traditional situation, Donald Trump, and his associates don't have traditional situations, such as Elon Musk. Well, what does it do? I'm not even saying this is a negative thing. I think the country is in a much better place with Donald Trump than with fucking Kamala Harris, by far. At the same time, being that he has a non-traditional situation, and Elon, who's basically up there, Elon's getting more attention than JD Vance, and he ain't even the vice president. These people have non-traditional situations. This is normalizing in society that this is okay. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? You tell me. But is it going to be normalized? Yes, it is. Donald Trump has multiple wives and multiple kids by different women. That's a reality. Elon Musk, multiple kids by multiple women. Is this a reality? Yes, it is. This is going to, TikTok's asking me to verify because I've been on here for an hour. This is going to more normalize in society that this is okay. This is the thing that you can do. The bald-headed kickboxer, I mentioned him earlier. I generally like his message. The fact that he has the familial situation that he has, combined with the fact that he's very influential and he has a lot of fans, this is going to influence other people to believe they can and should do the same thing. I'm not even saying it's a bad thing. What I'm saying is this is going to become more normal because the people we see as successful, Cam Newton is looked at as a successful man because of his success in sports and the notes about how much money he made as an athlete. And the same thing with many other people who have made a bunch of money and did things in a non-traditional way is going to influence other people. Well, hey, I could do that too, even if they don't have the money part, because they're influenced by the fact that this person is who they are. So this is where we're at. All right. With all that said, folks, and a couple more things. Compared to liberals, the conservative side of things is still much more traditional. Right? So if we're going to talk about upholding traditional values, especially when it comes to the family, the liberal side of things in America has they have nothing to say. They have no legs to stand on. No legs to stand on. The fact that they co-opted the rainbow, number one. The fact that they're saying that a boy can become a girl, and they're fighting in court for the right for boys who decided they're girls to play sports. Ridiculous. They have no legs to stand on when it comes to this conversation. At the same time, so if liberals are all the way down here in this conversation when it comes to traditional family values, conservatives are up here. The problem is conservatives are starting to kind of lower the bar. That's the issue. The bar is the bar is up here, right? Let's say the actual bar is up here. All right, the bar set by your higher being is up here. Conservatives are like right here, right now. Liberals are all the way down here. The problem is conservatives are just getting lower and lower to the point that both sides are going to be so far away from the bar that what is a family? What does a family even mean? In 2050, what will it mean to be a family? That's my question. Open question to the audience. What will it mean to be a family in 2050? We know what it used to mean in 1980. We see what it means now. What is it going to mean 25 years from now? I'm concerned about what it's going to mean 25 years from now to be a family. This is the big issue with Black Lives Matter. Those of you remember, Black Lives Matter experienced a big wave of popularity in the summer of 2020 after George Floyd. Then people started looking at their website, and the main thing that it said on their about page, a lot of y'all may not know about this because they scrubbed the website after they got a lot of attention. The main thing BLM said on their about page was that we want to disrupt the traditional family structure. That's what they said. And we want to focus on women and children. There's no mention of men. That was BLM's aim. That was their aim. And that's the reason why I was never a fan of BLM before that, also because they only point out stuff when they can blame white people. They don't hold black people accountable for anything. And on top of the fact that they wanted to destroy the traditional family. That's why BLM was a scam from the beginning. So that's one place Kanye West was right. BLM was a scam. And Candace Owens did a whole documentary on them called The Greatest Lie Ever Sold. If you didn't see that documentary, you could probably find it on her old employer, The Daily Wire. All that said, let's start off on comments. We'll go to YouTube, then we'll hop over to Instagram, then we'll go to TikTok. So XXX, good morning. Ben, appreciate you. He said, if any dad puts their own happiness over the child, that makes them selfish or bad. Well, that's a straw man question that you're asking. But if you prioritize something personally for yourself over something for your kids after you had a child, yes, you're being selfish. That's what it means. Selfish is not necessarily a negative thing. So you put selfish/bad, they're not the same thing. Being selfish is not necessarily a bad thing, but we can call it what it is. If you're a parent and you decide you want to prioritize something for you over something for the kid, yes, that is being selfish. Does that necessarily mean that what you did is a bad thing or that you made a bad decision? No, it depends on what the decision is and why you did it. So when I wake up early in the morning at 3:45 in the morning and I go to the gym and work out before I come back home, shower, shave, get dressed and do this live stream, am I being selfish? Yes, I'm prioritizing myself and my fitness. That is selfish. Is it bad? No, because I'm not hurting anybody. I'm just prioritizing myself. Nothing wrong with prioritizing yourself, but you have to have your priorities in order. Ben said, I hope I'm okay. Oh, well, not gonna lie though, if my dad was a billionaire, wouldn't mind only seeing him here and there. So were you raised by your dad, Ben? You're saying you'd be cool if you were raised by your dad. It's easy for you to say now. I'm assuming that you're an adult now. And so what this guy's saying on YouTube, he said that if my dad was a billionaire, it'd be okay if I only saw him here and there. Now, that might be easy to say if you already been raised and your dad was around. It sounds good. And I would say, yeah, that sounds good. What if my dad was a billionaire and he was just sending me $10,000 every month? It would have been a whole different life, but you wouldn't be the person that you are today. I'm assuming that you're a male. You wouldn't be the man that you are today if you didn't have a male figure in your life on a day-to-day basis. So it sounds good what you're saying, but probably not. Teresa on YouTube says, it's going to take God for a relationship to work nowadays. We're under judgment because of the past, how women have been left to raise their children by themselves without support. You have to have God in your life on both parties for the relationship to work. Right. So Teresa, I'm glad you made that comment. Now, how do you know that two people have God in their lives for a relationship to work? Well, that's why they say marriage before carriage. That's why the two people, the male and the female, we need to know that me and you, man and woman, we're together. We're in this. We have similar principles. We have similar values. Now that we're clear on that, now let's go have a kid. Not let's have a kid just because we're physically attracted to each other, and then we'll figure out if we're compatible after the kid comes out. That's the mistake. That's what's happening in society, is that a man and woman just go have a kid because there's a sexual connection between the two of them, a physical connection, but you don't even know what this person's about. You don't know what their values are. You don't know what their principles are. You don't really know what they're about at all, but because you are attracted to them, you're having sex with them unprotected, because that's how most pregnancies happen, unprotected, voluntary, unprotected sex. Then you get pregnant. And then all of a sudden, then you got the woman on some fucking podcast talking about how the man was this and that and how she wasn't happy, et cetera, et cetera. So why were you having unprotected sex with that man? Condoms cost like $8 at Walgreens. Why are you having unprotected sex with a person who you don't know what they're actually about on the principle level? That makes no sense. And I've been saying this to men for years. I'm not holding the women accountable because I'm no expert on the Bible. I don't even claim a religion, but God put man in charge. So anytime a relationship gets broken, I'm looking at the man. I'm always looking at the man first. I'm not saying a woman can't have a role in it, but I'm always looking at the man first. Like mofo. And this is what I say to men. Why are you having unprotected sex with a woman and you don't know what she's about? What are you doing? I understand. You want to please your flesh? Then you go to Walgreens and you buy some latex condoms and you please your flesh. Why are you having unprotected sex with a woman you don't know what she's about? Y'all know the Kanye song, 18 years. 18 years. She got one of your kids, got you for 18 years. And you're connected to her forever because that's your kid forever, no matter how old they get. What are you doing? I hold the man accountable for that. That's not the woman's. I'm not even putting it on a woman because a woman has to offer to the man. The man still got to go in. Y'all get what I'm saying when I say go in, right? So when it comes to electronics, you got the male and the female plug. So you see, this is the female plug. You see the bottom of my phone, that's the female plug. Female plug receives. This is the male end of it. The male end inserts. So no matter what a female offers you, you still have to make the decision to insert. So man, I'm holding you accountable. What are you doing? Again, protect yourself when you insert so that you are only responsible for 18 minutes instead of 18 years. So I'm always holding the man responsible, but I see women talking about it. I see more women going and having these conversations, talking about these things because women like to express their feelings and stuff out loud. But it's men are responsible for this nonsense that's happening in society these days. All right, protect yourselves. I've been telling men this for years, by the way. This is not new. Protect yourself. Go have your fun if that's what you want to do, but protect yourself. Modern Sabrina says, I believe wealthy men are often afraid of making mistakes. Sometimes it's the man who desires a lasting relationship with the woman he loves. Okay, then go find her. I mean, what do you mean? What kind of mistake can a man make? Only mistake you can make is let the woman know that you love her and she doesn't love you back. Okay, you go find a different woman. But this shouldn't be the conversation after you have a kid. That's the conversation before you have a kid. Modern Sabrina says, when it should be mutual respect for a marriage. Well, it's more than that. You need more than that. You got to be on the same page principle-wise and values-wise. Crespo said accountability to kids is no longer important in this generation. Yeah, that's what happened. That's what's happened. The standards have been lowered to where being accountable to the kids is just that's not the priority. The priority these days for a lot of adults, a lot of you who are listening to this, a lot of you are prioritizing yourself over your kids. As soon as you have a kid, you can't make it all about you anymore. That's just the way that it works. I saw this video of Puff Daddy. I talked about him a month or so ago. This is before all this stuff happened. And Puff was saying that if you want to be great, you want to be the best version of yourself, you want to be great. And he was talking in the entertainment space, but this applies in any industry. When you want to be great, you can't just do what you want to do. Everything is not going to be convenient. You can't always get a full night of sleep. You can't always rest. You can't always relax. You can't go on vacation. You can't act when you feel like acting. You got to move when you need to move, because to be great, there is a cost. There's a sacrifice for it. And he was 100% correct. It's the same thing with all of you. You're going to be a parent. There's a cost. There's a cost to being a parent. You cannot be a parent and still do everything that you want to do for you personally, because it ain't just about you anymore. So let's see. Tiana, I don't know what you were referring to there. Tiana said that's not true. I'm on TikTok reading comments, by the way. Lone Star says, seeing firsthand both ways, a nuclear family is best. Of course it is, because that's the way God designed it. So whatever way God designed things to be is always going to be the best way for things to be. Doesn't mean there can not be some exceptions, but exceptions prove the rule. They do not disprove the rule. The rule is man, woman, child, because that's the way that God said it was supposed to be. So you don't even have to, we don't even have to do an assessment of it. We know that's the best way it's supposed to be. Tiana said they had babies all over the place. Oops. What happened there? All right, there we go. Tiana said, oh, I lost my spot. They had babies all over the place. It's just the wife didn't leave. Yeah, that happens. I understand that, Tiana. Yes, that did happen. That happened back in the day. Still happens these days. The thing is, they still wanted to maintain the family. They want to maintain the nuclear family at home. So people make sacrifices. Men make sacrifices too, in some ways. I think women make, I would say the woman makes more in some cases, but the man makes more in other cases. Oliveira says, so that makes his behavior right. That's a straw man question. You got to be careful starting the question with so, because that's not what I said. Chris said, how many kids does he have? Who are you talking about? You talking about Elon? Depending on who you ask, it's 12 or 13. But I don't know if you're talking about Elon. Just Me said, thank you so much for being open-minded. Thank you. You're welcome. I've always been. Cookie said, God doesn't ordain this. What are you referring to? Bonnie said, well, I would look at DT as an example. There are better examples than your cell phone. I'm using Donald Trump as an example because he's the president of the United States and everybody knows who he is. Lori Jacobs said, doesn't mean people can't heal. We have the best of the best right now. What does that mean? What are you referring to there, Lori? Oliveras Simmons says, this guy. I don't know if that's a positive or a bad or a negative. Bonnie says, so are my kids. What are you referring to? Kebot, #1 gifted badge. Congrats. Oliveira says, liar in chief. How do you really feel? Leah said, now you got to do it with 10 baby mamas and is a felon. I don't think Trump has 10 baby mamas. Bonnie said, do I have kids? Yes. My son interrupted my live earlier, Bonnie. You might have missed it. At the beginning of my live, my son came in because I forgot to lock the door. So, yes. Mel said JFK may have been married, but was a known womanizer. Yes, he was. It is widely accepted by history that he was messing with other women outside of his relationship. That is true. But the woman he was with, she stayed in the relationship. Now, did she know about it? Yeah, probably. Probably. Now, she gets to make her own choice there. But my point being that if you decide you're going to be with this person and y'all get married and y'all have kids, then that has to be the priority of making sure that works, regardless of what happens. Because listen, the man can get sick of the woman for different reasons too, and the woman can get sick of the man and be mad at the man for things that he did as well. But the kids become the priority as soon as you decide to have them. Guy said, you are making a bad comment on Trump. Don't act like you're not. What did I say about Trump that people didn't like? Blessed by the Best said, why did Trump take away grant money from, it's not the topic here today. But I have addressed those things already. I got lives. If you go to my YouTube channel, whoever left that question about Trump and grant money, I did a live talking about those things. Tara Sullivan said, times and needs change. Well, saying that times and needs change is not a blanket catch-all for standards being lowered. I agree with you that times do change. That doesn't mean that standards have to change just because times changed. Saying that times change and people change as a way of saying that it's okay that we no longer have certain standards and principles that are clearly hurting society does not make it acceptable. what we need to do at that point is now address why have they changed, what have they changed to, and how do we get it to where it needs to be. Just because something is traditional or old or has been around for a long time does not necessarily mean that it's bad. It's just because something is new or different or fresh or unique does not necessarily mean that it's good. And a lot of people tend to have this mindset. The younger the person, the more they tend to think this way. Oh, well, that's old, so that means you got to throw it away. And this is new, that means it must be good. Not true. Sometimes the old thing is the best thing and the new thing is garbage. Danny, number 2 gifter badge. Congrats. Gardening with God. Yes, Ayala Vanzant. That's who the woman Ebony was talking to when Ayala asked her about the bus driver thing. And it went viral. I never had even heard of this woman. But that clip went viral when she came out saying, I would only, date a bus driver if he owns the bus. And then it went viral. And then she came out with another comment the next day. And then she went on the Breakfast Club and she just kept digging deeper into the same hole. She probably felt like she did good. I don't think she did. I don't think she made herself look good. But if you ask her, she probably thinks she did. Danny, thank you for the rose. Flaming Sword said, children need parents. Money doesn't teach what children need to grow into balanced adults. That's right. Jules said, money doesn't mean anything to kids. That's also true. Summer Childers, good morning. Rug Pull Radio, morning. Deborah said, if a man is a liability rather than an asset, he is not a contribution. She is not the one to blame. Oh, yes, she is, Deborah. Let me tell you why. So it's a good comment that Deborah Linehan made. She said, if a man is a liability rather than an asset, he is not a contribution. She is not the one to blame. Well, first of all, Deborah, how does a woman end up having a child with a man who's a liability rather than an asset? You didn't know that before you laid down and had unprotected sex with that man? Who's responsible for that? Again, a man inserts, a woman receives. So you as the woman, you know that you are going to receive this man into you. You better do the Carfax. You better know the Carfax on this before you allow it in there, especially unprotected. Would you agree, Deborah? You allow this in there, unprotected, you know what you're getting into, or at least you better know what you're getting into, because if you don't, then I'm holding you responsible. So that man's a liability. That man's a bum. That man's a deadbeat. That man's broke. He's a terrible guy. He's not the type of person I want raising my kids, but you already got pregnant by him. Why did you allow that to happen? Because he didn't force himself in there, did he? You let him in. So you tell me. You let him in. All right. And there had to be some lubrication happening. So you knew exactly what you were doing. So no, I hold the woman responsible for that. If a man ends up being a low quality guy, but you had unprotected sex with him, like one thing, you had protected sex with him. Unprotected? No, man. No, man. Deborah said, I was grateful she left us. She couldn't have paid me to spend time with her. I don't know who you're referring to. Namaste said, a paycheck is food, clothing, shelter. Not to have children based on finances is reasonable. That's fine. If you decide not to have kids because you feel like you can't financially afford it, fine. And at the same time, having kids because you have money is not a good reason to have kids. Again, most of us were raised by parents who didn't have a ton of money and had to figure it out along the way. All right. My parents, there are many times they had to figure it out. It's not like they planned it out. Like, all right, we're going to have these 2 kids. It's going to cost this much, this much. All right, let's get all that in a savings account and then we'll have kids. All right. That didn't happen. Most of your parents did not do things that way. They didn't say, let's put all this money aside. Or as soon as we got this much money, then we'll go have a kid. That's not the way it works. You have a kid with the right person and then you figure it out along the way. Which is the way a lot of people live life. Most people don't have their whole lives planned out perfectly and execute perfectly throughout 80 years of life. Sarah said, my dad would do nothing for me. I'm sorry to hear that. Melissa said, truth. Thank you. Namaste said, families come in many forms. Such as? What forms are you talking about? Family means man, woman, child. When this woman, Ashley St. Clair, posted that she had a baby by Elon Musk, a lot of people were saying, congrats to you and your family. What family? I mean, technically it's a family. If it's a mom and a kid, that technically is a family. But they were saying, congrats to you and your family. Well, she didn't create a family. All she did was have a kid by a guy who she knows she's not going to be with. And again, it doesn't make her a bad person. But what do you congratulate? You congratulate her on the baby. But family, what family? She didn't make a family. She just had a baby. Sammy got the number 2 gifter badge. Then Melissa got it. I like the gifter badge competition. MJ said children deserve better. Yes, well, they deserve as much as the parents can give them. And a lot of parents these days are prioritizing themselves over the kids. That's the issue. Odie Lee said, there are men I know that are dirt poor, purposely impregnating. One dude is up to 8 with 6 women. I believe that to be true, Odie Lee. The issue is, why are the women allowing him to do it? If you know the man already got 7 kids with 5 women, why would you become number 6? That's the question. So again, the man has to insert, the woman has to allow him in. So who's allowing this guy in? Shingis says, bro has a bunch of room for all that knowledge. Good joke. Melissa said, I completely agree with you, but I think a lot of the problem is women aren't dealing with men's shit. LOL. What do you mean by that? It's me, 1987, Chris. Thank you. Jules, appreciate it. Jules said, then I realized I was on the wrong part of the beach. Yes, that really did happen. I was on South Beach, and it was like 12th Street, and it was all these rainbow flags, and I didn't know what the rainbow flag meant. But then when I looked around more, I realized what it was. There's a bunch of gay guys sitting around, and they were looking at me because I'm sitting there. So they assumed that I knew where I was at. So now I was like, oh, ain't no girls over here. Let me go to where the girls are. So then I left that part of the beach. Haven't made that mistake since. So Stinky said, we didn't incur them to go get pregnant and get on welfare. What do you mean? Jules said it was an important societal standard. Yes, it was. It's still a standard. It's just fewer people are adhering to the standard. That's what's happened, is that we just lowered the amount that we expected people to deal with it. Stone Cut said it's still a bad label to be a deadbeat dad. Yes, it is. It is. The thing is, deadbeat used to be a dad who just wasn't around and showing up. Nowadays, deadbeat has turned into a man who's just not giving money. So if a man has a kid and gives all the money, then he's not a deadbeat. But as far as I'm concerned, he's still a deadbeat, because the purpose of parenting is not to give money. The purpose of parenting is to be present. So even if you're a single parent and you and the mom are not together, you can still give as much time as possible to the parenting, even if the check is always coming in and the money's on time. You still have to physically be present to not be a deadbeat. If you're giving a bunch of money as a dad, but you're not giving presence, you are still a deadbeat dad. No amount of money can make up for a lack of presence. Joe Jones said, you can't miss what you didn't have. That is true on some levels. I was not raised by a single parent, so I can't speak on it from personal experience. But Joe, what I will say, Joe, is that I know men now who were raised by single parents and their dads were not around. And they told me that even when they were kids, they missed the fact that the dad wasn't around, because look, the dad might've been there until they were 5 and now the dad's gone. So they know what it was. Or they may have male friends as kids. They have their dad. So you see your friend with his dad, but then you go home and your dad ain't there. So you can miss something that you don't have, because you can see by comparison either how it used to be before your dad left or how it is for other people who do have that. So I'm going to challenge your point there. I get what you're saying, but I'm going to challenge your point. Okay, y'all on TikTok can hear me. I know y'all can hear me on TikTok because I don't have a mic connected to TikTok. So I know y'all can hear me. Jules said, I had to go make breakfast. You have a wonderful day. Thank you, Jules. Hopefully you followed me. And you got the #1 gifter badge. So shout out to Jules. Aloysius says, there's a lot of no-show dads out there. Yes, there are. And societally, we've made it more and more acceptable. It's always existed, but we made it a lot more acceptable now. That's the issue. And men need to hold other men accountable. If you're a man and you have a male friend who's not doing his job, taking care of his kids, you should hold him accountable and say, yo, go take care of your kids. What are you doing? Linda said, totally agree. Our kids are the most important things in our lives. Good and bad happens. That's right. Summer Children said, my happiness stopped being childish. Said, my happiness stopped being priority #1 when my child was born. Yes, that's the way it's supposed to go. For a lot of women, you almost don't have a choice, especially if you're single. I mean, because the kid is attached to the mom. So for a lot of women, you really don't have an option of no longer prioritizing yourself. You got to take care of the kid. For men, there's an option. Men have an option. So that's why as women, you need to vet who you're going to have unprotected sex with, because you know what might happen. Kazim Badruddin said, are you a lawyer? So there it is. Question of the day. No, I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on TikTok. So I usually get asked that question every day. Somebody asks if I'm a lawyer. Hidden Gem said, I like to see a man who can speak logically without insulting others. Well, thank you. I'm capable of insulting others. I'm just not doing it today. But no, I appreciate that. Thank you. Patriot Amy, good morning. Patriot says playing house. Yeah, that's what they say. That's what they used to say back in the day. Are you playing house? Maddie said, I'm 57, youngest of 9. We had one mom, one dad, and Faith. Well, there you go. Was your family rich? I think is what you were referring to. Don said, first college grad in the family. Congratulations. Don said, mom was 16 when I was born. Princess Livings. My parents were both the first in their generation to go to college while in the Army. That's great. My sister and I were the first to go to college in our family. My mom was in college, but she dropped out when she had kids, and she didn't graduate till I was in college. Pray Salon says been normal for years. Yes, it has. That's my whole point. Princess Living said liberal equals against traditional family values. That I would have to agree with. Yes, the liberal side of things, they are disrupting the traditional family standard, and I don't agree with that. Princess said what the Bible says, it means stands forever. That's correct. Exactly. That's a good point. So as I was saying earlier, just because something is new does not mean it is better, and because something is old does not mean it is bad. So the Bible is a very old book, but the principles in there, you don't go change them because they're old. Well, the Bible's old, so let's just come up with something new. Said nobody ever. Actually, there are people saying that, but that's not correct. Principles are etched in stone, ladies and gentlemen. Principles do not change because times change. That doesn't happen. You do not change your principles because times change. You can change your approach. You can change your strategy. You can change your tactics. You do not change a principle just because the principle came out 50 years ago. The principle is still the principle. That's why it's a principle. Gravity is old. Are we going to go against gravity just because? Oh, gravity's been around for a long time. So let's just do something new. No. Princess Living said, SMH and BLM never liked him. Yeah, not a fan of BLM. Don said, like you put an oxygen mask on first, then child. Well, Don, I get what you're saying there as a kind of pushback to what I'm saying, but you also get the spirit of my point. The letter of your point is accurate, but the spirit of my point is also accurate. Katie, Texas conservative, good morning. Kazim said, you got to take care of you. Yes, you do. And you have to prioritize your kid at the same time. It's harder for a woman, I will admit. Much harder for a woman than it is for a man. Gary Dudley said, I had 3 kids by 2 different women. That was my priority. I didn't get my first motorcycle until my kid was raised and out of the house. Well, good. Well, at least you knew where your priorities were, even though you had. Was that your plan, Gary? Let me ask. Was it a plan to have multiple kids by multiple women, or is it something that kind of occurred? That wasn't the plan. Did you do that on purpose? I'm going to guess that you didn't, but you tell me. 10 Man said, another lawyer pandering to women to collect fees. Who are you talking about? You talking about me? I'm pandering to women? I don't think so. And I'm not a lawyer. It's Still Rose said, why are you putting the man down? Women are just as responsible. I told you why I'm putting the man down. The man was deemed by God to be in charge. The woman is there as a support system for the man. So if a man and a woman are together and they screw up, I'm looking at the man. If a man and a woman together screw up, the first person I'm looking at is the man. How do I know this? In the Garden of Eden, God said, eat freely from any tree, just don't eat from that tree right there. When the serpent fooled Eve into eating from the tree, and then Eve went and fooled Adam into eating from the tree, and then they realized that they were naked and they covered themselves up. God found them, and when he saw that they were eating from the tree and covering themselves up, what's the first thing God said? God said, Adam, where are you? So God held the man accountable, even though all the calamities started because of the woman. The serpent didn't fool Adam, he fooled Eve. She went and fooled Adam, and then he followed her lead. And as soon as God realized they were screwing up, the first thing God did was address the man. He did not address the woman. He addressed the man first. Same thing I'm doing. I'm not saying I'm God. What I'm saying is, if a man and a woman mess up, the man's responsible because the man is supposed to lead. If a man is not leading in a relationship with a woman, he's screwing up, period. So that's why I'm holding the man accountable first. Someone said, I'm putting the man down. I'm not putting him down. I'm holding him accountable. If you consider being held accountable being put down, then that's your problem. Rose said, I tell my daughters only they can protect themselves. Well, technically true. And if a female chooses the right man, then he will protect her. Choose the wrong man, then he won't. Don said, started with the me generation. This is true. Katie said, I was talking to my husband the other day about how many times I said no in the moment. It was me to carry the rest if something happened. That's right. Black Butterfly, good morning. Katie said, nuclear family is key. Yes, it is. Yes, I have kids. Blue Birdie said, fathers need to be present and emotionally available. That's right. So that's why, Blue Birdie, a woman needs to vet and know who she's dealing with before she decides to have a child with a man. You need to know who that man really is. Live Free said, you're right. Thank you. Sabricia said, hi from the Florida Ranches. Shout out to the Florida Ranches. Live Free. Thank you. Casa de la Rosa said, he might be terrible, but he ain't broke. Who are you talking about? The problem is you can't make up for a lack of parenting with money. So a man having a bunch of money but not being a great guy is not a good formula for having a kid. But it seems like many women are opting, not many, but many women, at least they allude to the fact that they would be open to that. As long as they have money, they're good. I'm not a fan of this. Bluebird said, women aren't having kids or married because they will be blamed. Well, it depends on blame for what. Live Free said, always hold that woman accountable. Yeah, everyone gets held accountable. Just the man goes first. That's all. The man goes first. The woman will be held accountable, but the man gets held accountable first because he's a man. For no other reason, because he's a man. Ree said, why should any human without the ability to support children even have children? Well, how do you define support? So we got to break down your question here. Supporting a child does not mean you have to have all the money stored away. Again, how many of you had parents who said they went and calculated how much exactly it would cost to raise kids to age 18, put all that money in a savings account, and then had a kid? Nobody does that. Most parents don't do that. They have the kid and they figure it out. They figure it out along the way. Because if my parents needed to put all the money aside before they had kids, well, we wouldn't be doing this live because I would never have been born. They ain't had the money put away. They figured it out. Bluebird said, the husband changes for the worse. How is it her fault? Well, that's a good question. And this is why, you know that commercial where they say, show me the Carfax? You know that commercial? Show me the Carfax. What I'm saying to all of you, males and females, is that before you have unprotected sex with a man or a woman, you need to suss out who they actually are, their principles, their values, their standards. Who are they really? Not their representative. You know, they call that the representative. You go on a date with somebody and they put on their best face, their representative. Then is who they really are. Your job as a man or a woman is you need to know who this person really is before you have unprotected sex with them. If you fail to vet them properly and it turns out that they fooled you with their representative and then the real version of them comes out later and you didn't know, you messed up because you didn't do your proper background check on that person. That's what I'm saying. So the question here, Bluebird, who said, if a husband changes for the worse, all right, well, who failed to note that he was going to change for the worse? You did. You failed to recognize who he truly was because he was always that person. Now, you say he changed for the worse and maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was a different person before and now he's changed into something different. Then you all are still responsible because you want to look at that person and ask yourself, who is this person going to be in 5 years? Who are they going to be in 10 years? Who are they going to be in 20 years? And you know that by looking at their past performance. You look at the trajectory that they're on now, and you try to predict with as best rational thinking as you can, where's this person going to be in the future? And if you make a mistake, you own the mistake. And that's it. This is what we call accountability, folks. Live Free said the courts give ownership of the children to the woman even married. Most of the time, yes, they do. Conservative contradictions at an all-time high. Technically, Bluebird, you're correct. The issue is, as I explained earlier, now, Donald Trump wasn't always a conservative, and neither was Elon Musk. So they're just with the conservative party because that works for them politically. But are they actually conservative in their views and principles? Not really. Elon Musk was, again, he comes from Silicon Valley. There ain't no conservative place. That's highly liberal. Good Free said most black people are conservative. I think that a lot of black people are conservative in their views. The issue is a lot of black people have been psyoped into thinking that the conservative side Republican means white or racist, and therefore they got to do the opposite. I think a lot of black people have been sold that idea. Brittany said, is women picking wrong or men not stepping up as parents or leaders? Both. Brittany, it is both. If you pick a man that ends up being not shit, then you as a woman is responsible for that. And a man, if you decide to have a child and you don't uphold your responsibility, then you're a deadbeat dad, period. So it's both. But if I'm looking at the man and the woman and they both screwed up, who am I going to address first? I'm always addressing the man first. Because God deemed it that way. The man is in charge and the woman is supposed to be supporting the man. So if they're both screwing up, then the man screwed up. And the woman will usually follow suit as a general rule. Ben said Dre's doing jokes now. LOL. Yes. So I do these live streams, folks, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. I started a little bit later today because I had to catch up on some things, get some things in order. But I'm usually talking about some type of current events, some things happening in the news. Sometimes I talk about evergreen topics, but often is a current event type topic because y'all like to talk about this stuff. That's the reason I talk about it, because y'all like to engage on these current events topics. If you're watching me on TikTok, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel because the replays of all of these live streams are on my YouTube. My YouTube is youtube.com @DreB. @DreB. DRE. Last name is Baldwin. So Dre B, that's my YouTube channel. All the replays are on my YouTube. I am live on YouTube right now. So I've streamed on 7 different platforms on my normal setting, which is here at home. And what else? I think that's it. Workonmygame.com. You want to get on my email list? I send out emails every single day. You get on my email list completely for free. Just go to workonmygame.com. Learn more about our programs by going to dreuniversity.com. And that's that. I will see all of you tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern is when my live streams start. 8 a.m. Eastern is when I do these live streams. The topic, to be determined. It depends on what's happening in the news. So I just see what's happening, find something that I want to discuss that I think would be beneficial for the audience. That's how I pick my topics. So sometimes I can tell you ahead of time what it's going to be, but oftentimes, like today, I don't know what it'll be tomorrow, but I guarantee you it will be absolute game. I'll be breaking things down logically and objectively as I can, and try to help people see every side of a situation. And I'll give you my opinions at the same time, but I'll let you know when it's an opinion. I'll also let you know when I'm just giving you a straight up observation, painted with my perspective. So everybody got that? I will see all of you tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern. Everybody have a great Monday. Work on your game. Yeah.